Now, I probably talk more about drones than any of the other UA tubers that you might watch, and it's because I'm just fascinated by how this has changed warfare. So I was going to talk about this yesterday, but we just didn't have the time and effort to be able to put into with everything else going on. Ukraine's gun bots defend Pokrovsk. I'll get to that story, but I'm going to get to that story as I go through the sequence of events because really the big overwhelming story yesterday would have been Trump and Zelensky. Here they are and a map beside in the Oval Office. The Declaration of Independence is behind them, as you can see here. Like Trump put this in the office. And I mean, he's the president. I mean, it's going to be safe in the Oval Office. And here is Zelensky and Trump talking about like what's actually happening on the ground. And apparently it was a pretty good day in the negotiation. Not a lot. I mean, we didn't go from like here to here yesterday, but there was a good movement. Zelensky said it was a good day. But I want to show you something really interesting here first and work my way to that gunbot story. Okay, this is why giving away Donbass can't be an option for Ukraine. Now, Putin thinks that like you have to surrender Donbass, Luhansk, and Donetsk, and then we'll freeze the lines in the lower two seized oblasts. Okay, this is why it's not going to happen. Donald Trump will ask Zelensky to give away Donbass in exchange for a ceasefire with Russia. That's what Russia wants. It would mean giving 9 cities and main fortifications to Russia without a fight. So here's a map of what's actually happened. Here are the 9 occupied fortress cities, and this is what they control. Now, it gets even weirder. Here's what we're mainly talking about, the non-occupied part of Donetsk Oblast, since the northern part of Luhansk Oblast is mainly rural and has been occupied without big fights in spring of 2022. This is what Russia took in 30 months. What you see in red here is what they took in 30 months after the last Ukrainian counteroffensive. So this is what 30 months worth of fighting was for Russia. That's not a lot, right? Okay, now this is 5,100 kilometers in 30 months. It means kilometers squared. It means that they still have 6,500 kilometers squared to be taken. So again, that was 30 months. And then here's cities like Bakhmut and Avdiivka and Toretsk, right? That's what was captured over those 30 months. Now, the next one, 6,500 square kilometers yet to be taken just in Donetsk. That includes Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Konstantinivka, Pokrovsk, and other cities that you're familiar with, Liman, Seversk, right? They're all out here in this fortress belt. Okay. Who would be crazy enough to give away without a fight a total worth more than 600,000 population cities with Russia only took 250,000 population cities in 3 years of war. This without forgetting that this area is industrial and has mining potential, even if partially destroyed in war. Like that's what they would be giving up just to come to some peace terms. That they're not going to do that. In particular, in this particular region, a big part of Ukraine's new Donbass line is standing. It goes from the southern part of the non-occupied part of the oblast, Izium, Kharkiv, and is now even Sumy. So here are the lines. So not just the cities encircled here, but here are the lines and then extra lines of fortifications, right? That would be given up as well. They can't do that. Here's a map of what would happen if this region is in the hands of Russia. No more big fortifications, open terrain, further offensive actions in central Ukraine to push to Dnipro, Poltava, Zaporizhia, or Kharkiv Oblast. So you give up all that. Now your lines are outside that area, and there's not really a lot of room to negotiate, because if you go beyond that, then you say if the region's handed over to Putin without a fight, it would place Russian forces 10 kilometers to Izium, 26 to Lazova. These are the only cities west of Donbass before Dnipro, 120 kilometers, Poltava, 175 kilometers. They'll just sweep forward and take all this ground. Like, it's not fortified, it's not protected, it's just farmland. They can just push forward and grab more land and then say, well, look, we should have this oblast as well. Okay, so that's the background here. Now, overnight, Russia launched 270 Shahed-type strike UAVs. Now, I've been worried about this. Like, okay, they're saving up for a rainy day, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll show you why I might be wrong. 5 Iskander ballistic missiles, 5 KH-101 cruise missiles at Ukraine. Ukrainian air defenders shot down 230, so there's 40, and then 2 ballistic missiles, so there's 3. 2 out of 5 is there's 3 remaining, and 4, so there's 4 KH-101 missiles, so there was 1 KH-101 that got through. Now the night before there was 144, and before that it was all in like double digits, like 70 or 60 or something like that, and I've been like, that's not a good sign. Okay, now I'll talk about why it's not a good sign in a little bit and why I was wrong about that. Here's the morning after the talks in Ukraine. That's, I think, Poltava, right? Yeah. Massive Russian attack on Poltava last night. Thankfully, no one was injured. About 1,500 without electricity. Okay. And here's another view of the city. Sky is just not supposed to look like that, right? Putin's forces launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine's Poltava region, striking Kremenchuk and Lubny with deadly drones and cruise missile. Okay. Now, yesterday I was talking to Greg Terry and Johnny Pierce from ATP Geopolitics. We're just kind of unpacking, hey, here's what I saw. What did you see? Here's what's happening. And Johnny said something really interesting, and I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to say what I said. I'm going to show you what I said yesterday, and show you why I was wrong. Listen.
They didn't go hard on Ukraine tonight.
Tupolev 95 just took off from Elena Air Force Base.
And they've been saving up their Shaheds for weeks now. Like they've been at 50 to 100, other than last night, most days for the last 2 weeks, when they can produce up to 150 or so.
I don't think they can. So
I know that they hit the factory. I get that, but even before they hit the factory, they were slowing down how much they were able to do. And
so unless you see a 600 drone strike tonight, which would be the perfect night for them to do that, then absolutely Russia's supply chain has been hit, and I'm pretty sure it has been hit because I keep a close eye on the stats.
That's a fair point. I'm gonna tell my audience that tomorrow what you just said, because I think that's
Prof,
a fair...
your audience is listening right now. You're live.
No, I know I'm live. I'm saying tomorrow morning, those who are not watching this, most of my viewers don't watch live streams like your viewers do. Like my viewers like the 10-minute short little something, be quiet after 15 minutes kind of thing. So I'm not expecting everybody, but I'm going to tell them tomorrow what you just said. I think you're right that if they have a big strike tonight, they still have that production, and if they don't, that may be indicative of that their production ability has been hindered.
Yep, I think that's right. I think Johnny Pierce was right. Good job, Johnny. If they can only put out 200 and something and then 100 something the night before, they just don't have the 150 ability anymore. Maybe they're down to the 60 or so that they were at before that. So good job, Johnny Pierce. He's right. I can admit that I'm wrong. That's fine. FPV, and I'm glad about that, right? FPV drone strikes on Russian fuel tank in Zaporizhzhia region. This is what Ukrainians were doing to Russians. The Russian railway connection through occupied parts of Zaporizhzhia region is not functioning. You don't say after a strike like that. Here, the Russian train was attacked in Zaporizhzhia. And again, it all comes back down to drones. Look at this. Here's the FPV drone just, nonchalantly going after that train. And yeah, that's something, right? I mean, FPV drones have changed everything, and we're going to see that in the ground bots in just a moment. Okay. Last night, yesterday, day over day, 890 Russians off the battlefield, 68 artillery systems, 123 vehicles and fuel tanks. Ragnar Goodmanson's dashboard, just a couple of interesting things. Most engagements of August so far. Casualties are below the 7-day average. Drone losses well above average. Strong artillery losses. Most aerial attacks of August so far, but defenses held. Okay, let's talk about the Pokrovsk direction, because this is where the fight is. 52 assaults. That's high given the number of casualties. And then we have the bunny ears, and we know that Azov cut that off. And there's more to the story here. So there were not enough defenders here for whatever reason. And the Russians took advantage of that. And then they called in Azov, first Azov, to come in and reclaim some of it. But they didn't do it alone, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Ukrainian forces recently advanced near Dobropilia. Russian forces recently advanced near Liman, Donetsk, and Pokrovsk. And here, the robot counterattack. This is the main story that I wanted to get to. Ukraine rolls gun bots into brutal Pokrovsk battle. Wheeled robots firing machine guns are helping Ukrainian troops defeat a deep Russian incursion near Pokrovsk. So here's the actual article. This is from Euromaidan Press. Robot counterattack. Ukraine rolls gun bots into brutal Pokrovsk battle. Fighting hard to roll back a dangerous Russian incursion around Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine, Donetsk Oblast, the Ukrainian Army's 93rd Mechanized Brigade had a little help from gun-armed ground robots. Ground-based robotic assault systems were used to liberate Ukrainian territories. The robots, equipped with machine guns, fired at the enemy concentration, approaching practically a close range. Okay, so now this is not to take anything away from the Azov fighters that were there. They were clearly there, but they had extra support. It's like having extra tanks rolling in around you or something along those lines. It's not an isolated incident along the 1,100-kilometer front of Russia's 42-month wider war on Ukraine. More Ukrainian units are deploying ground robots to assist. These robots are entering logistics, evacuations, mine clearing, even combat roles. It's pretty amazing. The 93rd Mechanized Brigade is part of a powerful Ukrainian force counterattacking around Pokrovsk a week after Ukrainian observers confirmed a dangerous Russian infiltration in the sector. And this is what these ground robots actually look like. Marching right past enemy Ukrainian trenches, an alarmingly common problem as Ukrainian military struggles with serious manpower shortage. Yeah, they really have struggled with this manpower shortage. That's no joke. And just trying to fill every place in the line and predicting where the Russians are going. And Russian infantry from the 51st Combat Arms Army infiltrated 15 kilometers north of the porous front line and then pivoted west toward the village of Dobropilia. Russian infiltration involving potentially thousands of troops from multiple battalions was aimed at completing the encirclement of the town of Pokrovsk, and that would have been really bad. It failed. This week, the Ukrainian National Guard's 1st Azov Corps rushed to Pokrovsk and counterattacked. Our search and strike operations have cleared the enemy from 6 villages, the 1st Azov Corps announced. A video of the unit posted online depicts the drone strikes on Russian troops and vehicles, the gun-armed ground robots rolling down paved roads and into residential yards, blasting left and right with their stabilizing guns. The robots give commanders options that they wouldn't have with human troops. The vision of frontline commanders is to deploy ground robots across the front for these ground robots to take on the greatest risk and the most dangerous missions. Now, FPV drones are going to come and try to, fight those ground robots as well and destroy them. But in the meantime, they can destroy infantry that are on the ground, and the infantry, the Ukrainian infantry, have been outnumbered in that area, and that's part of the problem. Ground robots can take the place of human troops, helping mitigate the Ukrainian military's deepening shortage in certain critical military specialties. Andrew Perpetua estimates that the Ukrainians are short 100,000 trained infantry. I'm not sure where he gets that, but Andrew Perpetua does good work. It's that shortage and that empty trenches that result that was probably the root cause of the Russians' initial success. Deploying each UGV, unmanned ground vehicle mission, still needs a large team to manage everything. It's relatively safe from Russian attack as it controls ground robots through wireless radio or optical cable. So you still need people to do that, but the ground robot might be killed, not the right word. The ground robot might be destroyed, but the person's not killed. They can send out another ground robot and keep on trucking. Relatively safe from Russian attack as it controls ground robots through wireless radio or fiber optic cable. The 93rd Mechanized Brigade robot counterattack was a triumph of technology. Owing to a serious lack of operational reserves, Kyiv had to poach units from potentially vulnerable sectors in order to build up a force powerful enough to defeat the Russian incursion near Pokrovsk, but it had a little help from their friends. All right. So we're seeing the future here. I'm like, this is really fascinating stuff. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian 3rd Special Forces Regiment eliminates the Russian invaders hiding in buildings near Pokrovsk. This is what FPV drones are doing in tandem with that. Russia will be unable to seize the remainder of Donetsk Oblast rapidly through force, as Russian forces have failed to do for over a decade. Russia could only be rapidly seize all of Donetsk Oblast if Ukraine concedes to Putin's demand. And that's why I wanted to come full circle here, starting with what I started with, because wow, I mean, it's pretty amazing what Ukraine has been able to fend off throughout this war. Okay, so my last little bit here, my friends, is I want to show you this. This is Chinese technology. This is a public safety robot, China's first spherical security robot, and it can do some pretty amazing things. Well, I mean, maybe that's not good in China, but just so that you can kind of see a vision for the future of what's happening. Like this guy keeps coming at him. Like, this is a security robot. You have to back off. You have to, deal with the threat that's in front of you, and it can shoot a little net at you, and it can support the police that are there. Like, we're seeing the future. All right, my friends, that's all that I have right now for today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience in me getting to that bit about the ground robots. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. I do these every day. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.